This is Michael Woodward, and this is Season 2, Episode 9 of the Jumble Think Podcast.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jumble Think Podcast. We explore the ideas and dreams behind some of the leading entrepreneurs from around the world. Along the way, we will give you some tips and ideas of how you can chase your own big ideas and dreams and change the world around you. On today's episode, I'm going to share some insights on how identity is so critical in being a dreamer and an idea maker. Beyond that, I'm going to give you some tips and practical steps you can do to start discovering that identity, laying the foundation, and moving forward in your journey of creating that big idea. Our guest on Monday's episode is Chris Daly. Here's a little bit more about Chris.
My name is Chris Daly. I am the VP of Marketing currently, or VP of Site Testing and Optimization at Disruptive Advertising. And we are a business that basically is disrupting the digital marketing space. We run paid ad campaigns for businesses to find qualified traffic. We send that traffic to websites, and then my particular area of expertise is converting that traffic. So once people are coming to your website, how do you make sure that they take action? How do you make sure they convert, buy your product, fill out a form, whatever it is? I didn't really know that this is what I wanted to do for a long time. Actually, I started going to school for business and marketing, and I had a vague idea that marketing was something I was interested in. So I started going to school, I started learning about marketing, and I actually got my first real job through just a random series of events. I was at one of my distant relatives' houses and bumped into like a second or third cousin who I literally have not even seen since. And she mentioned this company that did digital marketing and that they were looking for sales representatives. So I thought, what the heck? I'm in school, I need money, so I'll go do sales. So that's how I kind of ended up getting into the field that I'm in now. So there's a lot of reasons why what I do matters. The main reason is I am, my role is to help businesses understand what their users want. What I help businesses do is figure out, well, what is it that they want to see when they get there? What is it that is best going to influence them to listen to your message, to learn more about your product, to click through to another page on your website? What is it that is ultimately going to influence them? And that's a really powerful concept of, instead of designing a website that I want to look good, I'm creating a website experience that matters to my audience, that is based on what they are responding well to. And that's a really, really cool way to approach web design today.
So that's a little bit about Chris. Make sure to check back on Monday for our episode with Chris Daly. Now let's jump into today's episode, all about identity and how it's the foundation of making your big dreams and ideas come to pass. Hey there, welcome to the Jumble Think Podcast. My name is Michael Woodward, and I'm your host. Super excited to have you along for today's episode, all about identity and how it is the foundation of making your dreams and big ideas come to pass. Now, some of you listening might be thinking, what in the world is he talking about with identity? Is he talking about like identity theft, who you are and people stealing that and your private information, everything like that? Well, what does he mean by identity? The whole concept of identity has really shifted over the last few years. We can look at it from the story of that woman in Spokane who worked for, I think, the NAACP, and she said, I'm black. And it came out that she was very white. And then she said, no, I'm not really black. I identify as black, and therefore I'm black. And then we can look at the whole conversation around gender and how complicated that's become. I'm not a man, I'm a female. I'm not a female, I'm a non-gender. I'm this. And it's getting so confusing anymore what identity really means. And it's important that we lay a foundation of what identity is. If you look it up in a dictionary, identity is defined as the state of being identical. the state of being a specific person or thing and no other. And the third definition is the distinctive character belonging to an individual. And that's where we're going to really sit, is that third definition, the distinctive character belonging to an individual. So we're going to pause right there, and you may be thinking, what in the world does identity have to do with being a dreamer and having big ideas and making those a reality? How are they connected? Well, many of you, just like me and tons of people we talk to on this podcast, you've thought questions like this. I feel like I'm meant for more than what I'm doing. I'm not living my passion. I don't feel fulfilled in the life that I have. There's got to be more to life than what I see in front of me. And those questions can go on and on and on. But those are questions of identity. What is birthed out of that is the dream and the ideas. But the foundation of identity brings certainty to where you're going, to the dreams, to the ideas. Because the ideas and the dreams will shift and change and grow and evolve. But the core identity of who you are will remain the same. And so, or grow for that matter, into a more solid individual, a person that's more certain about who they are and what they stand for. So if you've asked those questions of, I feel like I'm meant for so much more. I have dreams inside of me, but I don't know how to get there. I know that there's purpose for my life and I have significance, but I don't know how to reach it. Well, the foundation is identity. And identity is a hard thing to define. You know, of course, we've defined it as the distinctive character belonging to an individual, but what makes up that character? Of course, there's the moral elements, integrity, honesty, being compassionate, being committed. Those are all, core foundations to your character, but there is much more to your character, to your identity that is past the character. Identity is built both on the character, but also of your likes and dislikes, your strengths, your weaknesses, your failures, successes. All of those things feed into your identity. Where you were born, what your home life was like, the culture around you, all feed that sense of identity. For some of you, you may identify with the city you grew up with. You may say, I'm a New Yorker. I love New York. New York is the best. And, those people on the West Coast in LA, they just don't get it. And then if you're an Angelino living in Los Angeles or Southern California, you may be going, well, you people in the Northeast, you don't get it. You don't know what it's like to live on the beach or have perfect weather every day. And so those all begin the foundation of identity, but identity is so much deeper. One of my favorite movies of all time, actually movie series, is the Bourne series. And if you've never watched it, you should, because it's pretty awesome. It starts out with the Bourne identity, which is interesting that the whole series is built on the foundation of identity. And if you haven't watched it, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about it for a minute here. The main character, Jason Bourne, has forgotten his identity. He had an incident where his memory is gone and he only gets little snippets, glimpses into who he is. And he has all this training, all of this instinct, and he responds to things, people attacking him, whatever is happening, by the instincts that are very much at his core. And those instincts are built on his identity, and yet he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know why people are after him. He doesn't know why he's a wanted man or why he has these skills or how he can see and understand and react to all of these situations. He knows the skills. He knows what makes him up, and yet he doesn't know his identity. And identity is the foundation for everything else that he can do. As he has revelations about why he is what he is and how he became, his identity starts to be rebuilt. And now what's interesting is his old identity, he chooses to be different from. He chooses to move past that identity into a new identity. So some of you listening might be thinking, what does that have to do with anything? Well, number one, if you have a identity crisis, it can be changed. You can figure it out and you can get past that. You can go further. The second thing is that identity can be learned. And that's both from learning from the foundation of what you're good at and your strengths and your weaknesses, but it's also things that you can strengthen in that identity to make better. You think of credit scores and they go up and down and they change and everything like that. But you can work on that both in a negative way and in a positive way to change that score. You are changing your identity in a viewpoint of how some people will qualify you for if you deserve money or a house or a car or whatever that is. That number will dictate their view on you, your identity. But you can change that identity as you work on it. Another thing we can learn from this is the viewpoint of others will define our identity. In the case of Jason Bourne, people looked at him and said, this is what we see you as. We see you as a threat that has the skills. And so as such, we're going to treat you that way. Your identity is both who you are from your point of view, but your identity is also how others view you. And that's so significant because sometimes they align and sometimes they don't. Sometimes you need to change because what you're doing isn't really who you want to be. And sometimes you need to ignore the voices of those naysayers, those people against you that are saying, no, I see you as this. And you're like, no, that's not who I am. That's not what I am. And I'm this, and I'm going to go against that. That leads us to our fourth thing. You have a choice. And ultimately, what that means is you have to be intentional about who you are, who you want your identity to be. Now, I'm not talking about creating a persona. What I'm talking about is at the very core, living to the honesty of who you are for the world to see. And being intentional about that is so significant because if you're just floating through life, your identity will never be the fullness of what it could be. And so you need to be intentional and make the choices. We're going to talk about some steps you can do to do this and make it better. But if you're not being intentional about your identity, then your identity will happen just by happenstance. And you want to be the one driving the foundation of your core beliefs, your character, what you live for, what you're willing to die for. You want to be the one choosing that path and not letting others dictate that journey of creating identity. It's so significant. Ultimately, all of this and so much more will lead to a foundation that guides you on your journey of chasing big ideas and dreams. So why does this matter? Well, the first reason why all of this matters is that it will help you focus on what matters to you. It gives you a foundation on what to say yes and no to. So often we make decisions based on the moment, and we say yes to things that we should have said no to and no to things we should have said yes to. Have you ever felt like you're sitting there and you're going, oh, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z, and you didn't? That recently happened to me with an idea I had about 6 years ago, and all of a sudden I see others that are doing it. And one, the revenue that they're creating, and two, how they're changing a specific industry in a unique way. And now something I should have said yes to, I wasn't able to do. And because I didn't do it, I wasn't able to do something cool that others are doing. The other thing that happened was that the things that I should have said no to that were robbing me from that idea ended up being something that didn't matter or led me down a path of being disconnected or discontent for years and years with what I was doing. And so now all of a sudden I look back and I said no to a yes and yes to a no. So knowing that identity of who you are gives a good foundation for making the right choices of yes and no. The second reason of why this matters is that it will drive you forward. If you're living from a place of purpose and passion and character and the things that you're just in love with, that will keep you motivated through times when the idea or the dream gets rough. It will happen no matter if you have a big dream, a small dream, a big idea, a small idea. There will be moments where there's struggle or doubt, and you need that driving force of saying, I know who I am. I know why I believe what I believe, and I know the purpose and passion behind this. So it moves you forward. Another reason why this matters is that it will help you live with that purpose. Living without purpose or destiny or dream or our true sense of identity, is a really depressing place to live. And we live in a world that is overly depressed right now. And so how much better would it be if you're living with your passion and purpose? Those passion and purposes make you feel like you have significance, like you're living your value. It's what you were created to do. And ultimately, that leads to feeding your soul. When you're walking in identity and trueness, you will feel that you're being fulfilled by that. Even when things really, really suck, you'll be feeling like you're fulfilled and that your soul is just being filled up. These are all powerful reasons why it matters. And for you, the reason why identity matters might be different, but it will set you up for a good foundation for chasing your big idea and dreams. So how can you do this? There are several ways you can do this. I'm going to hit on a couple things that are foundational. The first one is it will build character. If you build your identity on a foundation of character, that's what you believe, what you don't believe, what you will fight for, what you'll die for, and what you'll live for. When you have that foundation of character, that maybe it's honesty, integrity, or maybe your character is built on a foundation of a revenue and what you can do with that revenue to help others. Or character can be bad. You can be a cheat. You can be rude. You can be a jerk. You can be whatever it is. That character is the foundation for how you operate everywhere else, and especially in chasing that big idea and dream. If you have a good character, it's going to make life so much better for you and the people around you, whether it's your family, your coworkers, your employees. That character is a foundation that is significance. For me, my foundation stems from my belief in God and how Jesus died for us and gave us a choice to live. That foundation then feeds my beliefs of I need to love others well, because that's a foundation that Christ gave. And so for me, my foundation is found in biblical principles and truths. And the key principle from there is to live as Jesus did. Not how Christians necessarily live. There are good Christians out there. There are bad Christians who are not living the faith of Jesus. They're living a religious life. But I'm talking about a genuine faith that says, I believe that my life is here to serve others. My life is here to love well. And so that foundation of character for me is what drives me. And there's an old saying, your gifts, your abilities will take you to the top, but your character will keep you there. So I always think that you should start with character and then go to your gifts and strengths, weaknesses, and talents. Those gifts and strengths and weaknesses could be little signs along the road on this journey to help you drive forward. If you're a strong writer, maybe you were born to write. And that could be writing fiction or writing teaching books or writing plays and musicals. It could look like many things. Or maybe your giftings are playing music and you can have a foundation of playing music and use that gift to bring joy to others. You use those strengths and weaknesses to drive you. They help you along that journey. And I'm going to give you a practical step, but first I want to talk about passions. Giftings and strengths and weaknesses are one way you can help start finding that identity of what you identify with so that you can move towards the dream. But passions are another thing. So passions are like strengths and gifts and weaknesses and all of that, but they're a little different. You can have a passion that you're not good at, but with work and practice, you can take that passion, use it to drive you forward and come up with the skills and abilities to do it. So one of the things that I recommend doing for finding your character, your giftings, and your passions is to take out a piece of paper. On one side, what you're going to do is you're going to write for gifting or for character, you're going to write things that these are things I believe in. These are things that are foundational for me. I believe that I want to love well. I believe that I want to take care of my family. I believe that I would lay my life down for somebody else. I believe that honesty is an important part of being a business owner. I believe that all of these things. So what you believe. And just as importantly, on the flip side, strike that paper with a line down the center, and on the other side, things you stand against or don't believe in. I don't believe that killing is good. I don't believe in, for a lot of religions and people, they're pacifists. They don't believe in war. So write the things that you stand against and then reconcile the two. Where are there discrepancies between one side and the other? And then start reconciling that. This will take a while. You'll have to dig deep and do this several times. It's like an onion. Peel back the one layer, then go another layer, go another layer. Sometimes this is a lot of fun, and there are moments where you'll hit a foundation where you just go, this is going to shake my world for a while because it changes what I believe, and it's pretty significant. Do the same things with your giftings. That's the second step. Strike down the center of the page with a line. On one side, what are things you're really, really good at? On the other side, what are things that you're really, really bad at? And start writing those down. And then the third thing, strike down the center of the line again on another piece of paper. What are the things you're passionate about? And what are the things that absolutely drive you nuts? And start reconciling all of that. And then as you compile your character page, as you compile your giftings page, as you compile your passions page, and you put it together, you start finding your identity. Now, that's the simplest way to do it, but there are other ways and great resources out there. I think of Strength Finder. It's an amazing tool, and you can find that on the resources section of the Jumble Think website. You'll be able to go in and find a little bit more about who you are. I did this several years ago. I loved it. It's super cool. I came out with my top 5 strengths as a maximizer, a futurist, connectedness, belief, and ideation. And so that really is the foundation of some of my core of who I am. Another great tool out there is 16 personalities. You can go to 16personalities.com. It's completely free. On that test, I came up as a campaigner. If you want to learn about what those all mean, the futurist, the maximizer, the campaigner, you can check out those resources and you can learn a little bit more about me, or drop me a note and we can talk about that if you want. It's kind of boring, but it's fun for me because I get to see a little bit about me. There are other amazing resources out there, and one of those I talk about often. It's one of my favorite books. It's called The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson. It's a powerful tool to help you on that journey of being a dreamer or chasing big ideas. But one of the other things it's really good for is it talks about identity, and that's such a powerful tool on that journey. A couple other books that are helpful on this journey is Bourne for this. It's a really cool book which talks about identity. It gives you that foundation of saying, I was born for this. And that is at the very core of what identity is. Knowing with complete certainty that I was born for this. Another one is Disciplined Dreaming. It gets into identity, and it's a really, really good book. And one of my favorites is by a guy named Erwin McManus, and it's called The Barbarian Way, and it gets into a discovery of identity. Super powerful. Highly recommend it. These are all books that will help you on that journey of being a dreamer, but laying a good foundation for identity so that you can move forward in this journey. So we started out with a series of questions, those things that might be in the back of your mind, things like, I feel like I was created for something more. I don't feel like I have a purpose, or I'm not fulfilling my destiny. I feel like I'm selling out. I feel like I'm not living up to the potential. There's got to be more than this. And for me, I think you're right. I think you were created for something pretty incredible, that God has a plan for you, that He created you with purpose, and that purpose will drive you towards a destiny, towards ideas and dreams that you could have never imagined. But all of that rests in finding your identity and knowing the foundation in which you can operate from. When you have that foundation of character, of giftings and passions, all of a sudden, possibilities with your dreams and ideas can open up, and you'll have a compass for going forward on what you should and shouldn't do, where you should invest your time, where you need to say no and move away from, so that you can focus on living a life filled with purpose and destiny. I think you can do it, and I want to encourage you today. If you're listening to this and you're just going, I really resonate with this, but I don't know the next steps forward, drop me a note. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to help you on that journey, because I think there's something great for you. Now, I say this often. I'm going to leave you with this thought here, and I think it's significant. Living with purpose and dreams and destiny, finding that true identity and then growing from it doesn't mean that you're doing something that changes every person in the world. You don't have to be a Steve Jobs to do this. You don't have to be a president of the United States. You don't have to be some mover or shaker or influencer. What you need to be doing is living the purpose and destiny you were created for. And if that's being a nurse, that's incredible. If that's being a woodworker, that's incredible. If that's being the president of the United States, that's incredible. All of these are significant, but more importantly, it's walking in the place that you were called to live so that you can have the impact that you need to have. All of these are significant. All of them are important. But more importantly is for you to find that identity and then begin living out your dreams and ideas out of that place of identity. This is the true foundation to becoming a dreamer, to having big ideas, to changing the world around you. No matter at what level, identity is the core and foundation of everything else. I want to thank you for tuning into today's episode. I hope it's encouraged you on your journey of chasing that big idea and dream you have. On Monday's episode, our guest is Chris Daly. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure to check that out. If you haven't already, we have tons of incredible past guests and episodes on the Jumblethink podcast. One of the best ways you can find it, swing on over to jumblethink.com/podcast, jumblethink.com/podcast, and check out the past episodes. You can also find links to some of the best places to tune into the podcast, whether that's Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so many other incredible places. You can click on over on your device, whether that's an iPhone or Android, and click the subscribe button. That way you never miss another episode of the Jumblethink podcast. While you're at jumblethink.com, you can also find links to all of our social channels like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. That way you can connect further or drop us a note by going to jumblethink.com/contact. I would love to hear from you and know how the podcast is influencing your life. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to encourage you. Go out there, do something, whether it's small, whether it's big, today, to start building that foundation of identity and ultimately begin chasing your big ideas and dreams and changing the world around you. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, go chase those big ideas and dreams.
Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.